You see, the empath was not born to absorb. They were born to see, to feel, yes, but also to see into the soul of another. That gift, though divine in its origin, becomes a curse when placed in the hands of one who does not wish to be seen. The narcissist, that fragile god of mirrors, is terrified of being known. Their entire reality hinges on illusion. They survive on projection, on control, on distortion. They do not love, they possess. They do not connect, they conquer. And so when the empath has been slowly drowning in the narcissist's sea of falsehood, finally opens their eyes, something ancient awakens in them. I have seen this pattern countless times, in dreams, in case studies, in myths. The empath, often unaware of their own light, becomes entangled with the archetype of the wounded tyrant, the narcissist. This is no mere romance. This is an unconscious contract, a dance of opposites.
Yeah.
The empath, the healer, believes they can soothe the inner chaos of the narcissist. They mistake sensitivity for medicine. They try to become the savior of someone who does not want to be saved, only obeyed. But here's where it becomes dangerous. The empath begins to abandon themselves in the name of compassion. They confuse boundaries with selfishness. They excuse manipulation as trauma. They justify cruelty as pain in disguise. And slowly, they forget who they are. They forget what they need. They forget the very essence of the self, the core from which all healing emerges. And this forgetting is not benign. It is kind of psychic death, a slow erosion of the spirit. And it manifests not only in psychological symptoms, depression, anxiety, exhaustion, but also in the body, in the dream life, in the quality of one's perception. The empath begins to feel like a ghost in their own life. They walk through rooms and no longer recognize their own reflection. The mask of the persona becomes heavier by the day, but the soul has a limit. And when that moment comes, when the soul can no longer carry the weight of suppression, it does not ask for permission to awaken. It simply rises, often through dreams, often through illness, often through a sudden, inexplicable surge of energy that says no more. This is the snap, but it is not an explosion, it is an implosion. The empath does not lash out. They return inward. They reclaim their own projection. They begin the descent into their own shadow to retrieve the parts they gave away. The narcissist, of course, never sees it coming because they never truly saw the empath to begin with. They saw a mirror, a tool, a source of validation. They believed the empath existed for them. They were drunk on their own illusion. So when the empath finally disappears energetically, emotionally, spiritually, it is as if a portal closes and suddenly the narcissist is left alone with what they fear most about themselves. There is a reason the narcissist seeks the empath. It is not love, it is not connection, it is reflection. The narcissist sees in the empath what they buried long ago, the capacity to feel, to grieve, to suffer, to heal. The empath becomes a sacred wound they have long denied, but rather than face it, they exploit it. They bind the empath to their unhealed inner child and call it love. And the empath, conditioned by centuries of spiritual rhetoric that equates love with sacrifice, accepts this bondage as destiny. They endure, they forgive, they pray. And in doing so, they reinforce the narcissist's illusion that they are the center of the world, that their suffering is more important, that their wounds must be worshipped. But again, I tell you, the soul has a limit. The empath snaps not in hatred, but in awakening.
Yeah.
And so the empath walks away, not in fury, not in vengeance, but in revelation. Their steps may be quiet, yet the psychic rupture left behind echoes like thunder through the soul of the narcissist. You must understand, when a soul has lived too long in the temple of false sacrifice, his exit becomes divine protest. Now, let us delve deeper into what truly happens beneath the surface of this dynamic. The archetypal undercurrents, the mythological resonance, and the subtle transformation that stirs in the unconscious when the empath breaks the unspoken contract. We are no longer speaking merely of two individuals. We are speaking of ancient patterns, of gods and goddesses forgotten, of wounds passed down through generations like sacred curses. The empath carries within them the archetype of the wounded healer, the one who must suffer in order to awaken the power to heal. But herein lies the trap. When the wounded healer does not yet know they are wounded, they attempt to rescue others to avoid facing their own fragmentation. And the narcissist, so skilled at weaving illusion, becomes the perfect canvas onto which the empath paints their unlived life. It is projection, yes, but projection in its most seductive form. The empath projects not their shadow, but their light. They pour their potential, their love, their longing to be whole into the narcissist's broken vessel, hoping that in healing them, they too shall be seen. But the narcissist is not a mirror of healing. They are a black hole of unintegrated shadow. What the empath does not yet understand is that the narcissist does not want to be healed. They want to be admired. They want obedience, not intimacy, control, not connection. This dynamic creates a psychic split in the empath. The unconscious begins to murmur warnings through dreams of betrayal, of drowning, of endless corridors with no exit. These are not just dreams, they are symbols. The soul is speaking. The water in these visions often represents emotion, unprocessed and overwhelming. The corridors, repetition, the cycle, the soul trapped in a pattern that mimics love but is rooted in trauma. Eventually, the empath begins to experience what I call the shadow revolt. This is not rebellion in the ordinary sense. It is the return of the exiled parts of self, anger, desire, rage, truth. All the emotions that the empath learned were too much as a child, all the truth they buried to preserve peace. These forces do not return politely. They burst forth like volcanoes, long held dormant, and the empath, who has always identified with being good, kind, gentle, is terrified by their own capacity for fire. But I tell you, this fire is sacred. It is not destruction, it is purification. It is the soul reclaiming its boundaries, its right to exist, its divine fury at having been diminished.
Ja.
So sit, breathe, feel. Let the ghosts rise and speak their piece. Let the old versions of you fall away like ash. Let the truth of your being, quiet and steady, emerge from beneath the wreckage. You do not need to become anything more. You need only return. Return to the place where your knowing lives. Return to the self that has never left. Return to the sacred pulse within that does not beg or plead, but simply is. This, my beloved empath, is the final step. Not revenge, not validation, but embodiment. Let the narcissist wonder where you went. Let the past echo its last cries into the wind. You are no longer theirs. You never were. You are the mirror they could not shatter. You are the truth they could not bend. You are the light they could not dim. And now, finally, you are your own. So go, as the awakened one. Go as the quiet storm. Go as the sacred rebel. Go as the one who no longer snaps, because you see, because you know, because you are, and you are free.
Ta del je res lep.
Ja, čudovit res.
Ja, sebe dobiš nazaj in greš in si free.
Ja.
Ker nikoli nisi bil njihov.
Ker nikoli zares nisi bil njihov, res je.
Ampak si pozabil. A ne pozabiš, ko se pozabiš, da ne rabiš njih, da tudi ti si v bistvu se črpal ven iz njih, zato ker si pozabil na to, da tisto, kar potrebuješ, je že tvoje.